That's both Toronto. Okay, so let's get started. We are up to the Mishnah. Esrog Hagazol Vayavish Pasal. So we started already the Mishnah yesterday, but we'll quickly run through it again. Esrog Hagazol Vayavish Pasal. Shal Asher v'Shal Ir Hadidachas Pasal. Shal Orla Pasal. Shal Trumat Tzmeya Pasal. Shal Trumat Tahira. Lahitel V'Natal Kosher. Shal Demai. V'Shem Postal V'Shal Machzirin. Shal Meiser Sheni B'Yerushalayim. Lahitel V'Natal Kosher. And we're going to see the reason for all of these things today. Also Chazazas Harubai, not up to Masai, Liklaf was peeled, Nistak, it was split, Nikav, if it had a hole, B'chasher Koshu, and it's missing something. So if you put a needle into it, there's a hole, but that doesn't take anything away. It's only if there's a piece missing. Also Chazazas Al Mi'utai, if it only has discoloration in part of it, or not Uktzai, or if it's uketz was taken off, which most people learn at the bottom stem, or nika v'loy chaser kosher, or if there's a hole made in the esrog but nothing was missing, then it's kosher. Esrog akusha pasal, black esrog is pasal, a yark crazy, and if it's very green, with meir maksher, Rabbi Yehuda place it. And if you remember, Rabbi Yehuda learns it's pasal because it's considered not fully matured. Shir esrog akatan, minimum esrog of meir emer ke'egos, Rabbi Yehuda emer ke'beitza. The largest size is Kadesh Yoichas Shnaim B'Yadayachas. It has to be no larger than what one person can carry with two hands. I'm sorry, what two could fit into one hand. Even if it's so big that you need two hands to carry it, it's still going to be kosher. The main issue that we've always had throughout the years that we're always so worried about with esrogim is esrog amorkid. And esrog is a very delicate type of plant. Because of that, they used to graft it with lemons to make it a more robust tree. Shouldn't get too easily damaged. That really posed most of the problems throughout the ages with esrogim. And one of the
sorry. No, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
No, go ahead. Finish. Sorry.
But one of the simonim that they've given, but most places can hold, and you can't rely on it, is the orientation of the seeds. When you have your esrog that's tall, if the seeds are in the vertical position, then they say that is a sign that it's a good esrog. And if it's in the horizontal position, that's a sign that it's a lemon. That's one of the signs that they've used throughout the generations to distinguish between a lemon and a esrog, but the poskim say that that's not 100% reliable, and therefore you shouldn't rely on that proof. So I'm not sure exactly how they do know for sure. So here's, in addition to Shavua, there's a comparison. So first of all, you have a lot of bumps on the esrog, and your uketz is sort of indented into the bottom of the esrog. You can see here in the cross section better. You can also see the seeds are in the vertical position, while in a lemon, the uketz sticks out. It's a smoother skin, and if you notice, the seeds are more in the horizontal positions. Let's not look at this one; they're more in the horizontal position. So that's one of the simonim that they give. If he brings down, if he brought down from the Mishabura. So if you look at the Mishabura, we will see where he talks about it. Maybe I'll just learn that shtickle. It's a long shtickle in the Shavura, but it discusses what it is. So it says over here, Hatiyim, if it's a double esrog, which we're going to learn about today. I'm sorry, Hayorik, if it's green, it's very green like a grass puzzle. Unless it turns to the right color, when you leave it. I think this is where he talks about it. There's a long stickle. It's a very long stickle here. We can run through it quickly. So I'm on Tov Reish Mem Ches Sukkat and Samachay. If you know that the nature of the esrogim in that place, Shedarkan Lachzar Achakach, that they eventually turn the Maya esrog, after a while they turn from the green to the yellow. After they were in the keli long enough after they were being stored. Then it's kosher even when it's green. Since it will eventually turn yellow by itself, that means for sure it's completely developed. And if you remember, Rabbi Yehuda only had a problem with the green one because it wasn't completely developed. So you shouldn't be simach on that. You shouldn't buy an esrog unless it's already moving a little bit towards the right color. The Shema Yiyah Nishayarik, because how could you possibly know that it for sure will become yellow unless you see it actually starting to turn a little yellow? Esrog Amurkov. What if you have an esrog that's mixed with other species? The schema poskim show puzzle. Everybody agrees that's possible. I think the definition of murkav is grafting, and I think what that means in English is you take a branch from a lemon tree, from an active lemon tree, and you cut it so it's open, it's raw. So you peel the bark off it, maybe slice it, and then you make a hole in the esrog tree, and you put that into there, and they sort of grow together. So this way, you have now the DNA of both types of pears working together. And the reason why it was done is because the lemon is a much more robust tree than an esrog. So the loch is puzzled, the lo mikri esrog klal. It's no longer called an esrog. It's something else. Okay. There's a couple of different reasons why an esrog hamurkav is not allowed, that the Dirshum Shabur brings down. And one shot is the Chazon says because it's no longer an esrog, but the Levush says because it is an Isser climb involved, because you're not allowed to do Arkava. So that's why it's not allowed. The Taz brings down that the Psul of Murkav is because it's missing, because the part of the lemon DNA in it is not esrog. So you're missing something. And the Chalkas Yoyev says, in the name of the Shalosh Shuvah Nation Moshe, that since in this esrog there's also lemon here, you're about Faltoisif, because now you have an extra min there. The Kappas Tamarim says, by the Murkav, you don't have Tam Eitz or your period Shavim. There's a whole bunch of different reasons why Murkav wouldn't be allowed. Murkav Hainu by esrog velemony. It's esrog and a lemon mixed together. Let me see what he says over here. Okay. Oy pomerantz. I'm not sure what a pomerantz is. It's probably some type of orange. What does it say at the bottom? Tapuz. It calls that, I think it's an orange, yeah. Oy shum priacheres. Afilam hevrach ona me'ilam esrog l'toich lemony. Even if you took the branch of the esrog tree and you put it into the lemon tree. Wait a second. The Cholshkin in Hebrach Onaf min lemony, Toichil and Esrog, and Cholshkin, if you took a branch of a lemon and put it into the Esrog tree. Aval Hirkev Mishnei Ilone Esrog Biyacha. But if you remark of two esrog trees together, to go in Anafsh Ilon Cheperoshev Dakim Ukatanim, Zach Ilon Cheperoshev Dasim, you found a healthier tree, and you remark it with a weaker tree to help it, that will be kosher. Now there's another type of therapy that they did, is that they would take some dust from the lemon tree and sprinkle it on the esrog tree. I'm not sure what that technique is, but there is such a technique.
Maybe cross-pollination. Maybe the dust is pollen.
Could be that's what it is. So Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says that this will be kosher. Oh, and it might be that, because he writes, Kiven she'ein b'koyach avokazu la'atzmiach b'fnei, it can't grow by itself. So therefore, if you check,
female tree and pollinate it, yeah.
That is partial lemon, it's not a problem. But, even if you could analyze the DNA of a esrog and find some lemon DNA in it, which would indicate that it was pollinated by a lemon tree, that would not be a problem. Okay. There's 3 simonim which with you could tell whether or not they're murkav. A, that we know that esrog is bumpy, has a bumpy skin, while a lemon is smooth skin. Number 2, in the Murkov, the ukit sticks out at the bottom. It's not indented into the peri like a Nesrik. And Gimel, Kitoicha Murkov Rochav, the Murkov has a lot of citrus in it and less white pulp. Vamoil Shaloi Hurav, there's a lot of juice. Vaklipa Hamimutzas, the inner klipa, which is the white klipa, the white pulp, to the lid. That's between the outer veneer, which is the yellow. Between the citrus quadrants, you have this big white pulp. So in a lemon or in a murkov, that skin will be very thin. By the esrog, it's exactly the opposite. The white pulp is most of the mass of the esrog, and the pod where the seeds are is small. It's all dry, and even the seed pods are not juicy at all; they're very dry. Whether Shabbos because of oil siman in the Sefer Oil Shabbos that offered another siman. So esrog hagarin zakuf la'orich esrog, like we showed in the picture, the seeds are vertical. Ubamurkov hagarin mushkav l'roicha be'esrog. They're lying horizontally. He checked the sregim that we have, and they have all of the simonim of the esrog kosher. So he found some esrogim that have every other feature of an esrog except for the seed position. Once you see that it's not proof positive, you cannot rely on this siman anymore. The sregim that have outer features. You don't have to worry, you don't have to cut it open. Because maybe it doesn't have the inner simanim, because that'll ruin your esrog. So therefore, you can rely on the outer one. If you only have one feature that indicates that this peri is an esrog, and the other siman might indicate that it's grafted, what if it's a smooth skin, but so it only has one feature. It doesn't have two features. You should be machmer, because some service seems to say that the outer simonim you need to have them all. You cannot rely on only one of them. Because of this, the omnam the siman reizayim the fact that some sefer ma'od benin simonim acharei shel niskru b'shas. The some sefer is afraid to rely on any simonim because the Gemara doesn't mention the features. The daitai lemaisa ein lismach ala simonim kolol lahakel. You shouldn't rely on simonim, so you have to verify independently. Now, we'll look up what they are. I want to see what he says about it later. What the edition says, V'dinan shel asragim kedin oiftar the nechal b'masayris. How do you identify the right type of esrog? There's no features you can use. You just have to know from Messiah. Just like the oiftar, the way we know which birds are kosher is through Messiah. The hainu she'oiseh mokim yemuchzik miyamuk hadmoinim shesrei shegayim einim ukavim. You have to have yichas. That's why the Chazanish esrog is such a popular esrog. Because any esrog that the Chazanish pointed out was a kosher esrog, smart people took those esrogim, planted them, made orchards out of those esrogim, and now they're multimillionaires. And he ends off over there. There's some summary of everything. Is kol esrogim she'enan miyaneve. If you have an esrog that's not from somewhere, I think Yaneve esrogim are originally from Italy, or from any other place where we don't know historically that these were used by Gedolim and these are accepted as esrogim, a ligach b'li ksav hechsher. You should not take the esrogim without a ksav hechsher. So someone has to be able to testify with certainty that these are pure esrogim. And this is you shouldn't just rely on the fact that it has the features of an esrog. On the second day of Yom Tov, which shaking the four meanings only Rabbanim, you could be samech on simanim even if murkav is possible on the other days of Yom Tov. At the least you could rely on the simanim. Ayin sham achin beemes oidis ksava hechsher yesh gam kein harvel dati. Even if you get a hechsher on it, you have some other issues. A, If you just take an esrog, how do you know that this is not a forged hechsher certificate? You have to trust your soicher, and the soicher has to be able to independently verify that the person who signed this ksav hechsher is honest and it's the right signature. And if you have esrogim that are a new brand and we don't know for years that they're good, we need someone to testify that he's not mukhav. There you need to know, you need to have somebody who's very erlich, who you know, you can trust. Maybe someone's making a mistake. Especially when it comes to planting, there's so many scams that are going on that you got to be careful. I'm not sure what that means. He'll put a hechsher on one box of his esrogim. And the seller, when he finishes selling out this box of his esrogim, he just takes the hechsher and he transfers it over to the next box. You have to buy from a very early person. And if you have an opportunity to buy a esrogim from a place where historically they're known to be kosher and not murkav, you better have buying from there. If you already bought your esrog, or you cannot find somewhere where you know for sure it's reliable, then you could rely on someone testifying that it's okay, combined with the fact that at least its outer features match those of an esrog. Even though maybe you're allowed to use esrog murkav the rest of the week, the achronim seem to say that you should not use an esrog and murkav the rest of the week. If there is no other esrog in the city, then yes, you should use it all week without a bracha. There's some people are machmir not even to use it without a bracha. They're afraid that people are going to start using these esrogim and permanent. What about a dasim? If you know that the dasim are mixed breed, you shouldn't use them. They'll be just as possible as the esrog. Normally, we're not concerned to have a hadis murkav. The stomach ain't murkav because it wasn't done. I guess it's not like the esrog tree that was so weak that needed a robust hakava. The ganais hasarim is an ichshash murkavim. That Shvus Yaakov wanted to hustle the hadasim that grow in these gardens of these princes. So we allow dasim without too much scrutiny, but esrogim require a lot of scrutiny.
What was going on in Rodden that the Chafetz Chaim spent that much time discussing the sale of esrogim and what? I mean, it must have been quite an issue in his time for him to have invested that much in explaining what is going on, down to the detail of their, taking the hechsher off of one box and sticking it on another box. It seems like a lot of detail.
See, there's trouble going on.
There's a lot of
Let's see
trouble.
what he says in the Dirshu. The esrog beligreen and klal. What if you have an esrog without seeds, like the Moroccan esrogim? So the Bavazer says she'ein b'chashash klal. There's no problem because there's no t'nai anywhere in the hechsher esrog that it has to have seeds. It doesn't say that anywhere. But since it's possible that the reason why they don't have seeds is because they were grafted, you just gotta find out to make sure these are pure esrogim. If you could verify that they're not murkav, and there's a messiah that if these esrogim didn't have seeds, it'll be fine. You know that historically didn't have. Sometimes the esrog didn't grow enough, and the seeds aren't there yet; they're not visible. You don't have to worry. Morocco, he actually said about Moroccan esrogim, It's makabel from the prestigious families. They always use these esrogim. That's what it says in Mikdash Yitzchak, that the esrogim of Morocco are kosher for bracha, and even the Satan Rebbe allowed the esrogim of Morocco. To use Moroccan esrogim, the Satan Rebbe, you see, it was matter. To keep a lesson in Morocco, he praised how beautiful it was. The Briskerov used to use Moroccan lotus. The Briskerov also used a Moroccan esrog. See, the Briskerov didn't use a Chazaynish esrog.
Of a misnomer, because I remember with the contact the Scheinberg,
Right.
he had a box of like 5 or 6 esrogim. So it's possible that that's what they said about the Briskerov. He had 5 or 6.
I don't know. Probably not so easy in those days to get as many esrogim as it was in the Scheinberg days. Oh, it says even though the Briskerov used many different esrogim, but he was yotzes chayiv with the Moroccan. Now, if he made a bracha on the Moroccan, then he used others. And the same thing. The Stipler used the Moroccan esrog, but in Charles Shubas Mishnah Lochas, he writes that Mesiris for esrog without seed does not work. So he holds if it doesn't have seeds, then you're not allowed to use them. But if it could be it has seeds, then you don't have to worry. And the Meschitza brings down from this Achlas or Rabbanim of Artis of Bris and Canada, Shekosva they wrote Shalacha Badikas Indian his bar Shesrogim Veloy Garinim Gedalim Ba'anaf Echad in Osrogim Sheishlam Garinim. They actually did scientific research and they saw sometimes on the same branch you'll have a Esrogim with seeds and Esrogim without seeds. So clearly it's not a problem. And then Esrog without a Chazaka, the Bible says that if it doesn't have seeds, it's probably not an esrog. Okay, so if you know it's a good esrog and it doesn't have seeds, don't worry. But don't take an unknown entity and use it if it doesn't have seeds. How about the Taimani esrogim? The Chazinish was machshir, and he even told other people, he advised other people to make a bracha on Taimani esrogim, but he didn't use it himself. But he never said why. The Briskerov also used Taimani esrogim, but he wasn't yoitze with it first. So it was the Moroccan esrog that he used first, and he also used a Taimani esrog. What if you have 2 esrogim? One's muhuder, but it's a Suffolk Murkav, and one is not muhuder, but it's for sure not Murkav. So the Reb Chaim used to say that make the bracha on the Suffolk Murkav first, and then the Vade Eni Murkav. Why? Because if you make the bracha on the Vade first, but it's not muhuder, then you ended up doing the mitzvah in a not muhuder fashion. So you're best off using the muhuder first, and just in case it's not kosher esrog, it's not a problem, because right after that you're going to shake the one that you know for sure is kosher. Although the 3 Pesach Franks are the opposite, because then there might be a hefsek between your bracha and shaking the lulav. So that was it. And now Shlomo Zalman Auerbach answered the people used to ask them about the Chashash Esrogim or Kavim, that he cut open many times Esrogim after Sukkot to check their inner simonim. And he saw that the simonim are not so proven, because even Esrogim that we know from history that are not murkiv, he saw that the seeds didn't line up properly. Don't rely on them at all. Musmach bekashrusam, shenitin lismach alav, shebir ad heichan sheyode magas. You have to trust somebody who's erlich, who checked to the best of his ability. She'eina esrogim makam. That's pretty much what we do. We buy it from a reliable source, and since on the box it's printed kosher, then it must be kosher. Okay.
But yes, the guy who's selling it is not the grower. It's really the growers. These guys are all
right. So the person who's selling it have to do the due diligence.
Yeah.
Like talking about Rabbi Anya Zatzal, he would make sure that the esrog was grown l'shem yu. Das is dein esrog. Remember that? Takerik, he probably made sure that the tree was planted l'shem yu.
Yes,
I see an opportunity for blockchain here. We've got a blockchain to ensure the reliability of the esrog from the time it's planted until the time you have it.
Yep.
Yes,
I'm always looking for an esrog. You know that.
Akiva, you can be my esrog.
Okay.
Yosy,
Yes.
according to Rav Yosy back in the Mishnah, if you have such a big esrog, how would you hold the lulav together if they didn't shake it.
Oh, beautiful kasha. There are Rishonim that hold, and clearly it's our Yosy holds, that you don't have to shake all four medium together. As long as they're all there, you can actually shake
Really?
them one at a time.
That's
Yep.
the first time I've heard that. Wow.
Yeah.
Why would Yosy has the rest of them?
He holds the etcher could be so big that you need two hands to hold it. So how do you shake the Abrahaminim together? Some, but
That'll make-
the Rishonim tell you do you could as long as they're all there, you could do them separately.
Jan would go crazy. That would make Hallel 5 minutes longer.
Okay, let's see. If everybody had an esrog the size of a watermelon, Hashanah would look very different. And if someone dropped his esrog on your toe, it wouldn't be pretty. Okay, so I spent almost all the day learning Mishnah Berurah, and now we have to do a daf. So let's see if we can get this done. Tell about Priya Tada. Shatam Eito your Priya Shava. The wood as well as the pulp taste the same. Havayim is a esrog. Remember, I'm calling pulp the peri because by esrog, most of the mass of the peri is the pulp, and that's called the peri. Maybe it means peppers, little peppercorns, which also taste like the wood. Meir used to say regarding the parsha of Arlo, and it says you're not allowed to eat it for the first 3 years. So clearly, we're talking about a fruit tree, a tree that has things that you can eat. We're not talking about a pine tree. I know we're referring to a tree that produces fruit that can be eaten. Why did the Torah have to specifically say Eitz Michael in the pasuk? To teach you that Eitz Shetam Eito Yupir Yeshava. The Torah, when it's talking about Orla, means to include a fruit, not just a regular fruit like an apple and orange, which is for sure subject to the Isurim of Orla, but even a tree that's Eitz Tam Eito Yupir Yeshava, and have an Omer. And we say, what is the Torah trying to include in the Isra of Arla? Zepal Palam. That's referring to peppers. So Tosfos asks, why don't you just say it's referring to esrog? So Tosfos answers, because we don't need a pasuk to tell you a special limud that an esrog is included in the payers that are subject to Arla. It's like any other payer. Clearly, the Torah would be trying to teach us about a peri that we would have otherwise thought is not included in the Isra of Arla, and that are Palam. And Rashi says because it doesn't grow on a proper tree, it grows on a low bush. It grows on the type of tree that is normally not typical of fruit. The Torah is teaching us that there's even an Isser Arla on peppercorns. It also teaches us that even little peppercorns are found in Eretz Yisrael. Every wonderful species that we need is available in Eretz Yisrael. Nothing's missing. Everything is in Eretz Yisrael, even peppers. Zok to Gemara. So maybe Priya Tzadar means a pepper. Maybe that's what you use for your esrog. You imagine shul look at my esrog and wouldn't have made a little magnifying glass, right? Zok to Gemara, it's not practical. It's not practical to say that the one of the four medium is a peppercorn. If you only took one, you can't tell. And minkar l'chichasa is a very vital component of the arba minim. And the reason why it's a vital component of the arba minim is because we know that the whole purpose of the arba minim is to show that we were successful in our battle and we won over the Yitzhahara and the Rebbeinu Shalom was Moichalar Vereshim Kippur, and it's like a badge of honor. It's like a military parade, a victory parade. A little pepper won't quite cut it. It has to be minkra. It has to be obvious. Ninka tray or tlasa. So maybe you should take a whole container of peppers. Echad amar achmona. It says pre other singular. Therefore, the only logical conclusion is that it's a different peri, and that's what we use as. Rabbi Yomer al Tikri Hadar, not pre Hadar, ela Hadir, the peri that also happens to be a corral to house stuff. Madir zeh, just like a corral. There's a variety of animals in a corral. Older ones with things that were born this year, last year, 2 years ago. Everything's together. Hachanami, an esrog tree, yesh b'gedolim u'katanim tamimin u'balei mumin. On the esrog tree, there's good esrogim, there's bad esrogim, there's esrogim from this season, from last season, because we said that on an esrog tree, the fruits stay there from year to year, and some of them mature over a couple of years. Don't all pears, all trees are bigger and smaller. What's unique about the esrog tree, which I said too early is not that it's big and small in the same tree. On every tree, you have bigger fruits and smaller fruits. But this means that the new crop and the old crop are there together, meaning the esrogim that blossomed and started to grow last year wouldn't have been completed by the end of last season. They remain on the tree, continue to grow and mature, even though there's new fruits being growing on this tree. It's the same logic. It's also based on the fact that the fruit remains from year to year, but he just uses a different approach to what the word means. So hadir is what we just learned. It's like a corral. And he says, Omar al tikri hadar ella hador. Davar shadar bi'ilani mishana l'shana. A fruit that remains on the tree from year to year. So it's the same mitzias, it's just a different translation to the word hadar or hadir or hadar. And Nazayamer al tikri hadar ella idor, and the Tzionis changed it to hidor, which refers to water. Either in Greek, water is called either. The ezahu shegedla kol mayim. What type of tree grows on all different types of water, whether it's irrigated, whether it's rain? Havaymer is a esrig. That's the esrig. So there's different signals in the Priyat Sadar to indicate that we're talking about an esrig. If anybody has an art scroll, could you tell me how he touches gadol al kol mayim? I understood that it grows both through irrigation as well as through rain.
It needs a lot of water.
Needs a lot of water, right? So any water that it can get, it takes. My timer, this is already a repeat from the other minim, given l'sreifakoi, since it's headed to be burnt. We say it doesn't have the right shear. My timer. Why is the orla esrog possible? You're not eating it. One man says you have to be able to eat it. The only types of food you can use are foods that you're allowed to eat. If you can't eat it, you cannot be able to abramin. The chadam din mammon. It's because since it's asher ba'ano, it has no value to you. At this point, we think that one man holds that it doesn't matter if you cannot have hana from it, if there's no value to it. As long as you're allowed to eat it, that'll be good. The other man holds you don't need to be able to eat it, but as long as it has value to it, it's good. That's what the Gemara thinks of the
how can it not have value?
I'm sorry?
Saying in these days, if you have to buy it, right, how could it not have value?
The Gemara is going to have a perfect example of something that you're allowed to eat but has no value. We'll see in a minute. Tanan. So truma tameya possible. Our Mishnah says if it's truma tameya, it's possible. Now let's think about it. Truma tameya may not be eaten. So that's why it makes sense what the Mishnah says, that if it's truma tameya, you cannot use it as your esrog. But if you hold that you're allowed to use it for an esrog as long as it has value to it, a esrog that's made out of truma tameya has a value. I might not be able to eat it, but I the kohen's allowed to use it as fuel. So it has value. So why would the mandamer who holds that it just has to have value, why is it that he holds you cannot use a truma tameya for an esrog? It must be that everybody holds that it has to be edible. You have to be able to eat it. If you cannot eat it, you cannot use it. And therefore, everybody agrees that truma tameya, you cannot use the esrog. Keep leaky. The machlokes says if you need an additional requirement, that not only does it have to be mutter to eat, it also have to have value. Keep leaky b'din mammon. Mar savar heter achila be'inan din mammon lai be'inan. One man holds as long as you can eat it, even if it has no value, you can still use it. But mar savar din mammon nami be'inan, it has to have value. Now is the big question, Duvi's question: how can it be that you can eat something but it has no value? My beinayu, what is something that you could eat but has no value? So the Gemara, Ika beinayu ma'asher sheni b'Yerushalayim v'alibadar meir. Ma'asher sheni in Yerushalayim, you're allowed to eat. That's what you're supposed to eat. But the question is it yours or is it mammon gavoya? Your mayor holds it's mammon gavoya, and it's not yours. L'may nafkamina kiddush isha. If you had ma'asher sheni in Yerushalayim and you went over to a woman and said, "Arat mekudeshesli," with this ma'asher sheni, it's not a good kedushin because you're not giving her something that's yours. It's mishulchan gavoya. According to the Rabbanon, it would be a good kedushin. So this is nafkamina ma'asher sheni b'Yerushalayim v'alibadar meir. The man holds that the only reason why you won't be able to use an esrog is because you can't eat it. Well, this you could eat. You can eat this ma'aser shein, and therefore you can use it as your esrog. But if you hold because ma'aser sheini mammon gavayahu, right? So therefore, if you hold that you have to have a din mammon, it has to be yours. You have to own it financially. Ma'asheni you don't own, and therefore you won't be able to use it for your esrog.
Wouldn't Shvis be in the same category? Harris Shvis?
Vias,
Yeah.
no.
You're not allowed
No, you're
to
allowed
sell
own
it.
Vias.
But
You're not allowed to sell it, but you're allowed to own it.
You're allowed to own it. You're allowed to use it, but it has no monetary value.
I don't know if it's mammon gavaya. I still think it belongs to you. What you have to eat could belong to you.
Uh-huh.
Not a warehouse. Let's say it's Rab Asi who's the one who says it has no dimam. Why? Damar Basi, quite clearly, it's not a complicated right, it's an easy one. Esrog Shamash Sheni, the Diver of Meir, ain't Adam Yosheba, Yidechavasa B'yamtiv. The Diver Chachamim, Adam Yosheba, Yidechavasa B'yamtiv. This time. So clearly, since Rabasi clearly says that according to Reb Meir, the Mashasheni Mamman Gavayahu, you cannot use it as your esrog, it's quite clear he holds that you need that extra condition. Not only you can eat the esrog, but you also have a din mamman. Gufa, Amar Basi, esrog Shamash Esrog of Mashasheni, the Diver of Meir, ain't Adam Yosheba, Yidechavasa B'yamtiv. The Diver Chachamim, Adam Yosheba, Yidechavasa B'yamtiv. Matzah Shamash. What about matzah of Mashasheni? You don't own it. You're allowed to eat it, but you don't own it. The Diver of Meir, ain't Adam Yosheba, Yidechavasa B'Pesach. According to Meir, you cannot eat matzah of Ma'aser Sheni on Pesach, which is going to be Bambadik Shver. Who said that you have to own the matzah? It doesn't say anywhere it has to be your matzah. The Gemara will ask that question shortly. What about the Gabbard mitzvah of Hafrosh Chala? The Divrei Meir Peturim in a Chala because it's not a Risa say Chem. It doesn't belong to you. It's Mom and Devoya. The Chachamim Chayeves B'Chala. Maskeful Rapapa. Yishlama Isa. I understand when it comes to the Mechiv of Chala. And therefore, if it's not yours, so according to Meir, Mashasheni is not yours. You don't take challah. Esrog nami ksiv lachem mishalachem ela matzah miksiv matzaschem. It doesn't say anywhere that you have to eat your own matzah. So why in the world would you think that you can't eat matzah Mashasheni? Amar Rabbi Bar Shmuel v'Temer Rabbi Yemer Bar Shlamia asya lechem lechem. We learn the Gzereshava of lechem by challah, which you need to be arisa sechem. The lechem of lechem of matzah. Tzivach lechem oini by matzah. And it says regarding the mitzvah of Rosh Chala, that's what it says about the challah, and it says there, and we know there, just like the challah, though has to belong to you to trigger a chiyuv challah, so this tells you that if you're eating as a guest by somebody else on Pesach, you have to be koine the matzah. Now you don't have to make a whole big to do and tell your balabas, are you being maktan in the matzah? You don't have to do that. It's understood that if you're a guest by someone's table, he wants you to have the matzah. He wants you to be yoytzer the mitzvah, and whatever he needs to do that you should be yoytzer the mitzvah, clearly he's done. But avada, you're koine the matzah. There's actually a whole shaila. We learned it earlier. A guest by someone's house, is he koine what he eats? The Gemara arrives that he is koine what he eats. He's even allowed to give it to a child. And it's not called Geneva because whatever the balabas puts out, he's matzah to the people who's negate to air.
Is he kind of when he's chewing?
No,
before
anything available on the table, the balabais lets them eat, and that's why he's allowed to offer food to a guest, to a child, and that's why it was negated to air. It's also called his food like air. Zakmar lema masayla. Isa shal ma'aser sheni p'tur min achala. We'll bring a raya. Isa of Ma'aser Sheni is part of Chala Divrei Meir. The Chamar Mechayeves B'Chala. Correct. Gemara Lema Messiah. He. This is not a raya that the Machloikis applies to Chala as well. It's black and white. This is not a raya. A raya is you make a dik from something. This is black and white. So Gemara, you're right. What it's saying is that just like they're arguing here as well. Or you might say shiny Isa. The Amar Kura Arisa Sechem Trezim. Maybe you don't have to arrive from there because maybe Davka by Chala is there a tour if it's Ma'aser Sheni. Because by Chala it doesn't say Arisa Sechem once, it says it twice. But maybe by Matzah or by Esrog, it's not a raya that there would be the same halacha. Maybe Rabasi would hold over there that even according to Reb Meir, you could still be Yoitza and Esrog, you could still be Yoitza Matzah, only Chala where there's a special akpada because it says Arisa Sechem twice. Shall Truma Tmei Apostle. Why is that? The less better Achila. You're not allowed to eat Truma Tmei. Shall Truma Torah lo yitel? Why shouldn't you use Truma Torah? A kohen can eat it. If a kohen can eat it, why lechatchila does the Mishnah say don't use an esrog of Truma Torah? Pligabah Rabami Rabas. Chadam of Nesha Machshira. normally you put the lulav and esrog in water, it gets wet. If it gets wet, then it could be makabel tumah. And you don't want to put truma into a situation where it would be able to be makabel tumah. So that's why better don't use it, because you don't want to cause trouble. The other one says, if you're constantly touching the esrog to shake it, it gets brown eventually, and you're not allowed to ruin truma. My benai, what's the chiluk lalacha between these two shittas? Regardless, you're not allowed to use truma lechatchila. It's kagoyin shekara l'Hashem chutz mikli pasach itzaina. What would happen if, when you were mafresh this esrog is truma, you said, I'm not making the whole esrog truma, I'm only making the inside of the esrog truma, not the outside. So if the problem is you're being machshir the kabel tumah ika, because even if the outer edge of the esrog is not truma, it'll still become hukshur the kabel tumah if it's wet, and it'll still be able to become tummy, and you want to prevent that from happening. But if the whole problem is that the skin is going to get brown because it's being handled, that's not a problem, because the skin is not truma. Not kosher. Why is it kosher if you use a esrog of truma? The mandam holds that you just have to be able to eat it. You can eat an esrog of truma if you're a kohen. The mandam amar with the moment, according to the mandam, you have to own it. The kohen owns it, and therefore even another person is allowed to use it because he can give it to a kohen. The shel demai. The mai is suffik truma, suffik tevel, and you're not supposed to use it. My time of the Basil holds you could use it, and Bisham holds you can't use it. Basil said you could use it. Even the boy mafkul nichse bavani. Technically, you could be mafkul al yinachasim, then you'll be an ani. And an ani, according to Basil, is allowed to eat the mai. Hashtanami lachem krina bay. That we learned machilan esanim demai vesachsani demai. You could serve an ani demai, and you could serve when soldiers would come through a city. It would be forced on the people of the city to feed those soldiers. You're allowed to feed them demai. Vishamai ani loyach. Vishamai holds an ani may not eat demai. Loyach demai v'tnan machilan anim demai vesachsan demai. B'marpuna tana Vishamai ain't machilan anim vesachsanim demai. So therefore, according to Basil, since you could be mafki in a chasam, you become an ani, so it's edible for you. But according to Beishamai, where even an ani cannot eat it, it's not edible to you. Toshus asks a simple question: by kohen, I can't eat it, but the fact that a kohen can eat it is enough that I could be yoy to the mitzvah. So I can give it to a kohen. So Toshus here too, the Gemara could have just said that since I can give it to an ani, therefore it has value to me. By Shammai, you couldn't give it to an ani because an ani can't eat the mai here. So Mashasheni B'Yerushalayim, we'll just try to have one more stickle in. So Mashasheni B'Yerushalayim, the word the mandam reputation machshira. According to the mandam, holds you being machshir the kabel tumah higher machshira. That's why you shouldn't use it as an esrog. The mandam reputation machshira higher machshira. So Mashasheni is similar in its features to truma. If not al kosher, but if you use Mashasheni, it's kosher. Again, mandam reputation b'het achila divrei akoil. Everybody agrees. Even the Reb Meir, who holds that my Shasheni's mom and Gavoya, agrees you can eat it, so he would agree that you could use an esrog of my Shasheni. But if you hold that you could only use something for an esrog that has a din mammon, then you wouldn't be able to use my Shasheni according to Reb Meir, and would have to say Amani Rabbanan. He would have to say that this Mishnah is following the Shita of the Rabbanan. Let's do one more stickle. It's very easy. Also, we've got this color. Rabbeinu said, and Hashem should help him. That we say that if it's also chazazis, it's possible. That's only if it's all concentrated in one place. But if you have discoloration in multiple spots on the esrog, it will be kosher. That doesn't make sense. It looks like a spotted esrog. That for sure will be possible. This is what it means. It says kosher. If there's only discoloration on a small portion of the esrog, it's going to be kosher. On that, if it's discolored in a small portion of the esrog, it's kosher if the discoloration is concentrated in one place. If you even have very little discoloration, but it's spread out throughout the esrog, it looks like a spotty lulav, a spotty esrog, it'll be puzzle. But if it's right on the top where the esrog gets up to its top point, where it's very, very noticeable, even the mash is puzzle. That's when there's a little black dot. Everyone looks at the top of the esrog because there it's noticeable. There it's noticeable, and there it will be possible. Okay, let's stop here. At least we got the plot in.
Just thinking, it's interesting.
I'm hoping you had the ever. You didn't take that last time. That's the way Rabchizda always refers to.
Yeah, I guess when there's a chiddush said, he said it was sein gesund and stark. Also hat der Rebbe gesagt, sein gesund and stark. We had it a couple of times in the last 2 days. Yeah, it's an interesting comment. I was looking to see if anybody says anything about it, but I couldn't find anything. I thought also was unusual. I'm sorry, I think what you're saying.
By matzah, at the beginning of the Seder, we say halachmania. We say kol dichvin. We're making a declaration that basically that the matzah is available to anybody who wants it. Like a sheet that says you have to own it.
Uh-huh.
So the balabas makes a declaration. Where else do you see that? The balabas does,
So maybe that declaration is to make sure that you're to the lachem.
Right.
I hear. Here, I want to comment on Akiva's name. Akiva's name is Bia Tamim, because it says in the pasuk on this week, on this portion of the day, Tamim Tia Meshal Lakecha. But it's also very apropos that we're talking about Vulakachtem. It should be Alakicha Tama. So it's Stim Sai in the Parsha and Sai in the Sugya. So Shkoyach Akiva.
I just want to get back to what Avigdor said about that it has to be lachem. I thought I read that the reason why, let's say you steal matzah, at what point are you koined and there's a shinoi? It's usually by chewing, because that's the act of kinyan.
It would for sure be a mitzvah b'avera.
That could be, I know, but are you yotze the mitzvah of matzah?
Not if it's a mitzvah b'avera, you're not.
Why? Because you need lachem. And you learn that out of Lulav.
Let me take that back.
No.
Mitzvah b'avera does not apply to all mitzvahs. It only applies to something like a korban, lulav and esrog. It applies to because that's mamish, us touching the Shem Havaya, which we need to get Mendel Kaplan to speak about. But mitzvah b'avera does not apply to all mitzvahs, so it would not be a mitzvah b'avera.
So therefore, you would be yotze if it's a matzah gzula.
If you're koined, you have.
So
to be
what
koined.
time? At what point are you koined? You need a shinui. If you stole a whole matzah, I understood that you're.
I would render to guess that the achila itself is the swallowing. Why would I say that the achila is swallowing? Because I remember being taught that you should chew and chew and chew the matzah and try to keep a full kazayis in your mouth so you could swallow a whole kazayis in one shot. So if the swallowing is the kiyam mitzvah, and when you chew it, it's called a shinoi. You'd be right.
Doesn't the Gemara discuss if you had the kazayas inserted down your throat without chewing, that you're
right? So yeah, so it's the swallowing.
It's the swallowing.
It's funny that you're talking about it like it's some theoretical thing. Matzah is stolen. I will tell you a story that happened with me. I remember it was the evening of Shvi Shal Pesach, so it's like the first night of the second days, and I'm in shul and I'm talking, and we're, people always compare how much matzah do you have, extra matzah. So I was mentioning that I happen to have had a couple of extra boxes of matzah I overbought, and at that stage in my life, overbuying an extra box of matzah is like devastating your finances at a time where you're just trying to get on your feet. So to us, Yom Galayta, we're discussing it. It was a big deal. If you had too many extra boxes, it's a wipeout. Sure, I didn't know anything. I come home. My wife tells me, so and so came and told me to tell you that your husband told me to go get 2 boxes of matzahs from you. And my wife gave this guy. This guy is a multi-millionaire, and he literally went to my house, lied to my wife, and told her that I said that she should give him 2 boxes of matzahs. And it was nicht gesteigen, nicht geflogen. And he went and ripped off 2 boxes of Salem Papa matzahs, 4 pounds of Salem Papa matzahs that must have costed me in those days like $150. That almost killed me. But he just walked off with them. He didn't tell me anything, and he never came and said I want to pay for them. Nothing. He just stole 2 boxes of matzahs from me. But I guess he was makbid not to do it the first stage because he wanted to make sure it was lachem.
That's a case where he uses you both as an esrog and a matzah.
Right. But the beauty of it is he was makbid on the lachem that it should be mine. He wanted to eat mine. He wanted to build the wall, and I should pay for it.
All right.
But don't worry, I got him back big time because I once did a job for him and I made sure to include the extra matzahs in the price. And then some.
And what?
And then some. It wasn't just matzah, it became chametz. It brought,
and a Yanova restaurant.
But I couldn't believe that happened. He just literally, he went to my apartment in 120 Shelbourne, knocks on the door. Your husband said you should give me 2 boxes of matzahs. Okay.
That's right.